Okay, so I'm going to talk about how to do the DesignCAD in the NPGS. So the first thing you want to do in the menus of NPGS menus, you just click DesignCAD. Okay, so we're in here, and now you can use the Polyfill. So here you can see there is many toolbars over here, and this is actually inside the NPGS menus as well. So for example, the first one, the Polyfill, this is Polyfill, and this is also the Polyfill. So in order to create a patterns, so the Polyfill tools is the only tools you want to use. Okay, do not use anything else. All right, so we can just click on Polyfill. So by clicking this will actually give you a note how to do that. So there is just creating by different spots. All right, so just click it, and now I could do first point. Okay, and then I could do the second point, third point, fourth point, and no matter how many points you want to create, like you just click it like this. At the end, after you are done with the creatings, you just click Enter on the keyboard, and it's going to create a spot like this. Okay, just double click, and with that, you actually could see there is a small circles when they actually finish. So this means when the pattern was filled, so the machine is trying to fit it like here. So they're going to scan the electron beam like this, is up and down along this first line or this marked lines. All right, so let's do it again. So you just create Polyfill. So you can see what I'm creating now is a counterclockwise, right? The counterclockwise. So the counterclockwise actually means the first lines I created is going to be the scan line. So it's going to scan like this. It's going all the way from the from here to the right. And I can also do clockwise. All right, I can do a clockwise. Clockwise have a different define. Okay, so now if I click open, close here, as you can see, the last line, the automatically, the machine automatically close is going to be the scan line. So this is a definition in the patterns. Another sometimes you want to use is this. You want to create a square, or not square, a rectangle. So like it has to be vertical and flat, right? So in that case, you can do simple ways. You just click two opposite vertices, and then click open. And you can see here is a line, so that means it's going to create this rectangle, and it's going to scan from the left to the right. Okay, and you can do opposite way. So let's say I'm creating here. So from the upper right corner to the lower left corner. So this will have a different define. So they actually define over here. All right, so it's scanning from top all the way to the down. Okay, so when you're actually done with this, this one is or can be filled. And one thing you want to make sure is after you're done with your design, because you can see for the whole pattern, the origins is right here, right? So this is a 0, 0. It's on the upper left corners. There is a X and Y position. So you can see this X, Y positions is right here. So 0, 0 is right here. So that means this pattern is not in the center. So what it's going to do is when the machine trying to create or draw these patterns, this pattern is also going to be off-centered. That's not good, because we know we want to have the highest magnification possible to create a line or patterns which have a fine structures, right? So in order to do that, like moving this center of the pattern to the origins of your of the DesignCAD, you just click MM. So this is called the max mag, or it's actually here. It's called max mag. And then it's going to say, okay, you're going to move the patterns all the way to here. So 38 by 15. So you just click O, so they're going to go here. So this is going to be in the center. You can see this is in the center already. Another thing you want to know is this. So once you select a pattern, they have a different color. Right now, the color is green, all right? So you can double click it. You can see they have a layer. So this right now, it's layer 1, and the color is green. You want to change the color, actually. You want to change the color. So what is the definition of color? So like here, well, I just selected different colors for you to take a look. So this is going to matter in the run files, which we're going to see just a minute. And another thing is the layer, right? So you can select different layers. So let's say I select different colors and I select different layers, all right? So usually for the color, it will means inside the same layer. So inside the same layers, if they have a different color, that means you can assign different dose to that color, specific color of lines. For example, I could create a very fine lines. So this way, I create a lines that is only like around 500 nanometers or 460 nanometers, right? So like this. So because of the proximity effect, so this line is going to have a much higher dose as compared with this big block, all right? So in order to have both, they're showing. So what he wants to do is for this one, let's say I'm using a higher dose, right? I'm using a different dose like this. Because I'm just doing math here. And another thing is sometimes I want to create patterns very well. So I want to like basically right now, like because you can see I can basically create whatever the locations over here. Sometimes I want to snap my vertices. So in that way, it's going to be here, options, and it's called snap grid. First thing you want to do is grid settings. It's have a shortcut is Ctrl G. In here, you can say I can display grid, and then I say I could change my grid to let's say 1 micrometers. Okay, so now I could see the 1 micrometer grid, and then I could use the G or snap G to make them snap. So what does a snap means? So that means you can see my mouse can only locate it on integer number of the of my DesignCAD files. Right? So I could create a files which is exactly 1 micrometers thick. Right? So this would be simple stuff. Okay, so once I create it, another thing I can do is move it, right? So I can just basically drag it. Sometimes I can also do is, let's say I want to change this one by adding 1 more vertices on it, all right? So what I can do is I can use Control +1. So now you can see there is some spot over here, right? So this spot is coming out, and I can select this spot and drag it. I can drag it. Or over here, the mouse becomes, there is a plus on the mouse, on the cursors. You just click it, and you actually add your lines. So now it's actually creating a line like this. All right. So when you're done, you can click Control X to move it. So now, if you want to create an array, so there is actually have an array tools, right? So this is called draw array, and you can use array tools to create an array. Okay, whatever. This right now I only create 4. Okay. So then the thing is we can select them, change it into, let's say, red. Oh. All right, so this one is done, so I can press Magna and just just move everything to the center. So when I'm done and I'm satisfied with my design, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save to current NPGS project. Do not using the save over here. So this is not for the NPGS files. Okay, here, this one is for NPGS files. Okay, just create it. Let's say I want to do the test. So I already have a test, so I can overwrite. Just click O on the overwrite to do that. So they're actually going to be done. And then I can exit by hit ESC or other key to return. So I can just do this. I can return. So now you can see I would be able to see my test files. Now you cannot see them. So because the display is only the run file, I can do a DesignCAD file. Now there is a test we just designed. So over here, what you want to do is you right click and say run file editor. Okay. So once you're actually in, you can see it's all inside here. There are different parameters. So right now you can see there's 2 layers, right? So there are 2 layers. So inside each layer, they have a different color. Okay, so the thing you want to be careful or pay attention to is number 1, the magnification. Number 2 is the center to center and line spacing. So the magnification is actually have a maximum numbers. It's actually shown down here, right? So this is a 10 to like 844. So you want to do it like close to the maximum, but not exactly. So you do not do like 844, because that's going to create some problems. So you can do like 800. That's good. Then the center to center and the line spacing. So this is because what we are using now, the machine is called a Gaussian beam machine. So which means the electron beam is going to be focused tight into a single spot, and the pattern is filled with this spot. So that is where the center to center distance and line spacing is coming from. So the recommendation is I usually do like around 10 nanometers, and the line spacing, depending on your requirement, could be also like 10, let's say. So in that case, it's going to create very fine patterns. So if your pattern is big, like 50 nanometers and 50 nanometers would be sufficient. Okay, and then the configuration parameters. So this one is going to be your beam intensity. So on the SCM, you have a different beam. So like smaller beam is going to create a very fine patterns, but it's going to be very slow. And the larger beam is going to create a pattern faster, but as a trade-off, you are going to have a lower ultimate resolution. So for our machine, it's pretty good actually. So even you have a very large beam current, it's still have a very fine beam. So it's roughly like 1 or 2 nanometers. That's going to be more than efficient, more than sufficient to create a very fine patterns. So in this case, let's say I use 13. Okay. And there is a beam current. So this is where you're going to measure in the system. So in the system on the SCM machine, every time you're doing it. So let's say it's 890. So like we're going to measure it when we actually start the session. So here, so this is called different dwell color. So this is a different color, have a different dose. So they have a different dose ways. So I have area dose, line dose, and point dose. So for most cases, we're using the area dose. Okay, so for here, so this is actually going to tell me, okay, this is like a 261 microcoulomb per square centimeter. So for most common photoresist or Ebeam resist, polymethyl mesacronate, it's roughly about 300, right? So if the size is big. If the size is very small, the feature size is very small, it's going to be much higher. So it could be like 1,000 or even sometimes even, it's very, very fine features, could be like 2,000. So for our case, if this is like you're creating SU8 patterns, so that is going to be much, much lower. So roughly on the scale of 3. right? So this is going to be small. So in this case, you can see there is a red, right? So there is a red one coming up because this is a problem, right? So because the dwell time, so when the beam is created, the electron beam is shooting at this rate. But when you are creating a pattern so quickly, or the dose of the pattern is so small, so sensitive, when the resist is so sensitive, so it's going to be more than enough to create a single spot, right? To have this dose, because the machine we're using have a limiting factor that is 0.2 microseconds. So each time they actually each spot at least needs to take 200 nanoseconds. So in that case, you have options is either lower this one using a smaller beam, let's say 12, so that becomes, let's say, 400 or something, right? So you can do that, or you can increase the line spacing, or center to center distance and line spacing, let's say 80 nanometers and 80 nanometers. So in that case, you can do like 3.5. So that would be okay to do that. Okay, so in this way, so like we're going to create, okay, let's say 5, okay, so this one is, so the bigger area is going to be smaller, so let's say 2.5 or something like that. Right, so we just created like 2, or something like that. All right, so the layer 2, you can also write, but usually like, so like you may ask like why we want to create the second layer. So the second layer is created for a reason. You can see here. So the magnification, the parameters is going to be fixed. Sometimes what you would want to do is creating a very fine features within a very, very small, a very large magnification and a very small beam current. But you have something like contact pad, not very critical. In that case, you want to use a very low magnification and very high beam current to do it quickly, right? In that case, this is where your layer 2 is coming from, right? So because in layer 2, you actually could change the magnification and you change the line spacing. All right, everything can be changed again. And there is another possibilities is, let's say I create a first pattern with SU8, and the second layer I want to use in the polymethylmethacrylate, PMMA, for alignment for the second one. So in that case, I need to create a pattern first, and I'm going to skip layer 2, and then I'm coming back and skip layer 1 and doing that layer 2. So this is all possible. All right. So once it's done, okay, you can click save. So they're going to say, okay, you want to save some files. So let's say test. And over here, there is another things you want to pay attention. So there are on top before the entities. So you actually can have more entities coming in, right? So you can have more entities. So right now it only have one. So you can put 2 entities. So you have a different pattern name. So you can just like put in different patterns coming in. Right? All right. So this one, let's say I'm going to delete it. Okay. And so in this case, this is pattern, but over here, so it says it is a non-stop writing mode. Usually it's no. Okay. For non-experienced users, I also recommend it use no. So every time actually before you actually change the magnifications or change different layers, so the system is going to pause there, ask you to press the space bar to continue. Okay, but when you are actually getting more experienced, you can select yes. So when you are actually doing yes, so that means you press run, and the system is going to run automatically by themselves without stopping. So they're going to finish. And if this is the writing is taking long time, let's say it's going to be more than 2 hours or 1 hour, so you can just like press it and let the system run, and you can leave and coming back. So this system is going to complete by itself. All right. So this is it. So so in the SCM, so right now this is on my own computer, so you're not going to change those parameters. But in the SCM, so there are some things over here. So this says disable automatic stage control. Usually we will say no, because the system can, the NPGS can control the SCM stage, basically moving the stage by himself. Let's say you can create an array. So let's say sometimes this is pattern. You can also using array. So you are going to create a patterns repeatedly. So let's say this is a 2x2 array, and they have a spacing. So what is the spacing between the column and row? So you do not need to change this one. So your current center is going to be the center of your whole pattern. So like right now it's 4x4. So after creating this is 4x4 pattern. So let's say it's, my pattern, because I don't know exactly how big my pattern is. So in the DesignCAD I would know it. But let's say this is like 500 nanometers, 500 microns. So I could do 500 by 500. So this is going to be the way. So sometimes you want to do a dose test. All right. So sometimes you want to do dose test. In the dose test, you can expose the beam. So let's say right now it's actually having this dose, but I'm not sure exactly the dose. So what I can do is I can enable exposure step for array. So this is just click yes. So then they're going to say, okay, I have 4 patterns. I'm starting value is going to be 100%, and my end value, let's say I can change it to, let's say 400%. Right, so each time it actually change a little bit, or change by a factor of 100. No, if this is a fine, so like you usually don't get this much stuff, right? So you just click OK, and of course you can change it to 3x3, and you can see this is actually changed more. So like this will have more steps. They'll have 9 patterns. Okay, that's fine. Other things you don't need to worry, so this is going to be fine. And you click OK, and you can exit. Now you can see the run files. There is a test run file. So the test run file, you can simulate the writing on the machine. When you actually simulate it, this is exactly how they're going to showing it. So you change everything. So this is like 800x magnification and configuration. This is the beam current. Of course, they're going to create it just like this. So the total time, as you can see, is only 0.1 second. It's going to finish. Right? So this means the pattern can be finished extremely quickly. Right? So this is the second wear, and the second layer. I'm going to just skip this. Right? So this is basically the same stuff. Sometimes you want to do alignment, right? So alignment is going to be something quite different, right? So this is going to be a videos for next time. Okay, so next thing I want to talk about is the alignment. Sometimes, like I said, you want to create a pattern over another pattern, right? So let's say I have a first thing I want to pattern some SUA patterns, and then on top I want to using some polymethylmethacrylate to open holes and evaporate some metals on top of them. So my device is like that. So this would inevitably means you want to align one pattern with another. So how I actually doing it with NPGS. So it's let's say I want to create a pattern like this. So I already create a DesignCAD files. So let's say click here. So I just want to show you how this was created, right? So inside here, so this is a typical NPGS files, alignment files I'm going to create. So let's say how I create it. So, okay, so this is a window, you can see. So inside the window is a square followed by another square. So I created it like this. So I'm doing it pretty simple. So I'm doing it with one, and I snap it. I basically create a 2x2 square first, and then I double click it. And now you can see there is a line type. So in here, because this is what the alignment is going to align to. So in order to do that, I'm going to change this one into a line, so solid line. Solid line means in the alignment files, this is what the square is trying to align the pattern to. Right? So this is not going to be a creative, not going to be a field. And on top of that, okay, I can create another one. That's it. Okay. I'm creating two adjacent squares, and they're actually separated at this. They actually share one vertex. Then I'm going to create a square, a big square. So this big square is going to cover everything, right? So it's going to cover the alignment area. It's going to be something like this. So this is how I create what is this one? How I actually create this stuff, okay, this squares. So another thing, I basically create 1, 2, 3, 4 of these four set of this. So each one, I need to change the layer into one layer. So firstly, when you actually create it, it's actually all going to be in layer 1. But now I'm going to change it into layer 10, 11, 12, and 13. So let's say here, this is 11, this is 12, and this is 13. So do not use something like, okay, well, I'm going to, let's say one thing is, I can have this one is still layer 1. So this is not going to work, right? So you want to make sure everything is inside the same area. So this is going to be, this is going to be 11, all right? So this is where the alignment file, alignment window is going to be. So with that, so I'm going to save this. So this is actually going to be here. So you want to keep these files, these 4 alignment markers, be there, and make sure you need to, first thing, you want to pattern these alignment marks on your pattern. Right? So you can use a SU8 and let's say create it. It is fine. Let's say what I'm really wants to do is I want to create a very special shape. Let's say, okay, I want to create a shape like this. Right? This is just one example. I want to create a shape. This is just simply an example. It's not really what you want to create. Right? So I'm creating this E in the first layer. So you can see this is the first layer. Sometimes I want to create it in this color. It's better. Okay. And on top of this E, I want to create a second layer. So let's say the E is written first, and I could pattern it. I could evaporate some metals and do the liftoff. But the second time, I want to align on top of that. Right. So this alignment is I want to create some, let's say, this kind of stuff. Right? So I want to create it on the E. All right. So this is going to be my second layer. So this is going to be my second layer. Now, with these everything unsettled, I can leave this as is. But this one is by DesignCAD file, so not my alignment files, right? So this one is my, so I'm going to change another one. So other key to enter a new name, I'm going to put a new name. So new name is my align, let's say, pattern. Okay. So now this alignment pattern have 2 layers, right? 2 layers. What I can do, okay, let's finish this one. What I can do is inside here, so I have alignment patterns, and I also have alignment, my name on it. So what I do is I do in run file, but in here, so this one is my alignment, right? So you can see they have a different layer, layer 10, 11, and 12. So I'm going to create 2 entities here. The first entity is going to be alignment entity. So over here, they actually select whether you want to do it manually or you want to do it automatically. So usually we do a manually first, like unless you are very experienced users, you don't do auto alignment, right? Don't do auto alignment yet. So over here, you can see this is my alignment. So they have different windows. So you can see there's different windows. And in there, so they have a magnification, and this magnification is 400. Down there, again, so they have a center-to-center distance and line spacing. In this way, you do not want to use a very fine pattern, right? Very fine. This is a 6 nanometers. This is not going to be it's not sufficient. You do not need to be that sufficient, that fine. It's going to create a lot of, if you're using these parameters, it's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to expose your patterns very, very badly. So this is going to be, usually for this, I'm doing 150 nanometers. That's going to be sufficient, right? So every pixel means inside your scan is 150 nanometers. Sometimes 200 nanometers is also okay. All right, with that, here there is a count. How many count? I usually don't do a lot of count. I do like 1 count. Oh no, like I do let's say 3 count, 3 or 5 count. Let's say 4. Okay. So then this is also going to select what is the parameters. So this is the same. Let's say 13 or let's say 12. Okay, and it's going to be like 490. But again, so in this case, a lot of the time, you want to use the alignment as small dose as possible, because this is basically imaging, right? So the beam is hitting on your alignment mark. This is not what's something you wanted. So you can select, let's say I could use a much weaker beam, let's say 5, and only have the beam current, let's say 30 picoamps or something like that, right? Anyway, so this is one, and then it's going to have a pattern. Okay, pattern, they have a name, which is our pattern. So let's say align pattern, right? So in here, so we are going to create different things. So now we have 2 layers. So remember, like the first layer is basically the E, and the second layer is whatever one we want to do it on top, right? So that means the first one we want to, second one we want to skip. Lower one, the 10, 11, and 12, you want to skip. 13, you want to skip. So everything needs to be skipped. Right. So another thing is you can select a layer of the dummy alignment marks on here to be over 20. So if it's over 20, the NPGS file will not read it. All right. So then look at here. So you have a 400 for alignment. On here, usually you want to select it as the same of your alignment magnification. Because when you actually change magnification, you usually will see the imaging is going to be shifted slightly. So this is going to cause the alignment error over there. So this can be corrected. Let's say I doing alignment with the magnification at 400x, but when I actually doing writing, I'm writing at 1000x. So they have a benefit of creating a fine pattern, but have a cost is they have a image shift a little bit. So there is a way to correct correct this by doing the original offset, right? But you have to know where the offset is. So this is something like I can talk about later. So anyway, so with this, you can see this is a 400 X. So that means everything here and here is the same. So there will not have any alignment shift. Right? So this shift is not going to be big, but it's going to be something. Let's say around 1 microns or something. All right. So then I'm creating this just as is. Whatever we are going to create it. And so let's say 500 or something. Right. So you just this is exactly what he wants to do previous thing. Then you just click save, and then you just click align. It's called test, and you just click override, and this is a file you can run on the system. You can see on the system you can simulate a little bit, right? So the test, you see, I can simulate writings. So just the NEC key to continue, and they are going to do alignment. So this is the first alignment, second alignment, and third alignment. So obviously, because this is not on the SCM, so you cannot see them. And then when the alignment is finished, you can start, let's say, your repeat alignment. You say no, and you just click it, and they're going to create the writings for you. Right? So over here, actually, I could using plus to make it going faster, and it actually takes about 23 seconds to finish. Right? So down, then everything's finished. All right. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is alignment. Okay, or offset. So when you have a different layers, when you change different magnification, when you change different beam current, different current beam, so the pattern is going to be shifted a little bit. It's not going to be huge, but it's going to be a little bit. So the file you want to use is called this. This is called the check off. It's going to be automatically inside your DesignCAD file. So when you install it, it install for you. So you just click Run File Editor. So it actually tells you how to do that, right? So there is a command that actually says, okay, where it is, all right? So what it really is. So they are going to create two layers, two windows. So the first window is your first parameters. Let's say in this first parameter, I'm using 1000 magnification and center to center distance, because this is not going to change, right? So this is not going to change the offset. So the thing is going to change is magnification and the configuration parameter. So like what is the beam current? Let's say I'm firstly using the 13 beam current, but 13 beam spot size. So this is spot size, and this is the beam current. But this, in this case, this is just doing imaging, so the beam current doesn't really matter. And then here, and this is 100, and I have a configuration at the let's say 5, something like that. So by doing the writing, processing these files, you can find a different spot, right? So basically, you align the first window to a features in the SCM, whatever the the cross is going to align to. So I can just showing you how the material is really about. So this is called checkoff. Okay, this is where this cross is. So you basically scan the first window and find a features inside the SCM, right? And then by align to it, and the second window is changing. So ideally, if there is no offset, so this two cross would align on the same features. But if there is not, you can move the cross a little bit and measure what is the size of, or what is the distance between two crosses, and getting the offset, and basically using this offset to correct your alignment errors. Right? Okay, so the next we're going to go downstairs and running this on the real machine. Okay.